Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn will be taking part in his first and only televised event of the referendum campaign tonight. He'll face questions from our studio audience in an event chaired by Sky's political editor Faisal Islam. That's in just over an hour's time right here on Sky News. But what can we expect from the Labour leader, and has he done enough to make sure his voice is really heard in the EU referendum debate? Well, joining us now is the Director of Progress, Richard Angell, and Claire Fox, Director of the Institute of Ideas. Thank you both for joining us here on Sky News this afternoon. We'll come to Jeremy Corbyn in a moment, but first of all, you both have decided how you're going to vote. Outline your cases. Richard, first of all, why should Britain remain in the EU?
I'll be voting to remain because this is an important decision for the country. It's one you can't reverse once you've made it. But crucially, it's the best way for us to be stronger, to be safer, and to be ambitious on the world stage. We don't want just to control our own affairs, but the consequences of those affairs and have a role in the world around us. We want that to be a fairer place, a more just place. So if we want to do something about tax avoidance or climate change, or some of those big issues, we've got to do it with other people. And it's hard work working with other people because we don't always get on and we don't always agree. But it's definitely a better option, and the results will come back in their droves.
OK, Claire, you've heard what he has to say. Let's hear the reasons it's time to leave.
I stand in the tradition of popular sovereignty, self-rule, and anyone who's interested in progressive politics, ironically, will want to be associated with the notion of people being able to take control of their own destiny. And I'd much rather have faith in ordinary people in this country and accountability to elected politicians than a top-down, technocratic, unaccountable elite. That's broadly it. And when it comes to an international perspective, I consider myself to be pro-European, an internationalist, and I'm anti-EU, I'm anti the elites. So I take this as an opportunity to enter the world unrestrained by the kind of strings of a bureaucratic crew over at Brussels.
Richard, what do you make of that then? Too bureaucratic?
Well, all institutions are bureaucratic. If we had a referendum on Westminster and Whitehall, I'm not sure who would win sometimes on that because these things frustrate people. But I think we lose sovereignty by leaving because the things that are affecting our country are not just defined within our borders or amongst the seas. They are wide and global, and actually we gain sovereignty by working with others, whether it's through NATO or partnerships or agreements or by being in the EU. If we want to deal with the big global companies that are trying to evade tax that we use to pay for our NHS and important public services, you can only do that as a club of nations rather than as one nation on your own. If you want the best jobs and inward investment, you do that by attracting people together. And what I like is when a company is deciding where to locate themselves in Europe, they don't have to decide who has the lowest rates of holiday pay, who doesn't pay maternity leave, because we've decided to have high standards together, and that's good for working people in this country. OK, well, Claire, you've heard that we're better part of the club. Why do you think? Do you not think we would be isolated if we left?
No. As I've indicated, I appreciate that the big corporate club are very keen that we remain, and that's fine. The big corporates can stay there. I'm talking about a hugely important democratic decision on behalf of ordinary people. And the point I'd make is it's not bureaucratic like it's fiddly. It's actually an institution that was set up to insulate decision-making from popular demands, from popular accountability. That's why so many of the decisions are taken in an oligarchic way, behind closed doors and so on. So I want to enter the world. It's like an issue around immigration, for example. I'm very pro-immigration, but I know that that's something that the British people have to decide. And I also am not for Fortress Europe, because for all this talk about, open movement, everyone can free movement and so on. Actually, if you're not European, you can't get into Europe. They don't actually really believe that immigration should happen from anywhere in the world. So I'm here to welcome anyone from anywhere in the world, not just Europeans.
Claire, that doesn't stack up because more migrants came from outside the EU than from within the EU before. This is
you will know that the European Union has made it very clear that anybody who is not part of the EU club does not have access without the most strenuous checks and real barriers to get into Europe. That's what I'm objecting to. So I'm suggesting that this sort of we're internationalist.
trade deal with us. That's why other countries want to
I've just
work
pointed
together.
out to you that the point is that they do not. The European Union does not believe in free movement. It believes in free movement within the EU, not from out of the EU. I'm simply pointing out it's not as simplistic as those people who try and make out that anyone who's anti-EU is somehow retreating. I'm suggesting embracing the world democratically with a sense of solidarity with people in Europe and outside of Europe.
Richard, Jeremy Corbyn says he supports Remain. However, he hasn't really been very visible, has he, in this whole campaign? We're going to hear from him tonight, hopefully, here on Sky News. But he did admit yesterday that there was no upper limit on immigration if we stayed within the EU. Is he doing more harm than good to that campaign?
Well, tonight I think he's speaking to young people in the Sky debate, and that's a really important thing because while this debate has been fought out between whether you support the Prime Minister or the former Mayor of London, lots of young people have gone, I don't like either of them. They're Tories, they're bad, they both vote to cut the NHS or our public service.